Hi, I'm Kalilah Reynolds and welcome to Taking Stock, Quarantine Edition. We're still bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. But before we get started, head over to takingstock-ja.com to subscribe to our newsletter. You can click the link in the description box below. Now come on, let's get this money.
First up, how would you like to own a piece of the pie in an energy storage company? Tropical Battery is seeking $325 million in an initial public offer IPO priced at $1 per share. We'll discuss with Managing Director of Tropical Battery, Alexander Melville, and lead broker NCB Capital Markets. And later, the analysts continue the discussion on Tropical Battery's IPO, and has the market bottomed out? We'll find out.
But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart.
In an unusual deal, Seprod will seek to distribute over 15 million shares in Epley Caribbean Property Fund CPFV to Seprod shareholders in October as part of an interim dividend package declared last week by Seprod. Interestingly, Seprod is not a top 10 shareholder in Epley Caribbean Property Fund nor a top 10 shareholder in the separate listed management company Epley Limited. PB Scott, however, holds the largest individual shareholding in both Epley companies and Seprod. The notice was not posted to the Jamaica Stock Exchange, but brokerage house Mayberry Investments posted it online. Seprod shareholders on record as at September 30 will be entitled to the dividend, which also includes a cash payout of 30 cents per Seprod share. Seprod shareholders owning less than 20,000 Seprod shares will receive cash instead of CPFV shares, with the amount determined by the closing price of CPFV shares on the Jamaica Stock Exchange on September 17. Jamaicans will get access to quicker and easier testing for COVID-19 next month with the introduction of antigen tests. Director of the National Laboratory Services, Dr. Michelle Hamilton, said that the kits were approved by the Pan American Health Organization PAHO and will be used in addition to the PCR tests. The antigen tests are for persons displaying symptoms of COVID-19 and they will need to get a doctor's approval to take the test. Persons can do the tests initially at major hospitals, health centers, and the National Public Health Lab, with private labs set for later rollout. The antigen tests are more cost-effective, with results expected to be ready in about 30 minutes. An initial 80,000 tests have been ordered. Jamaica has decided to avoid entering into new oil hedging arrangements given the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. Hedging serves to save the island billions of dollars by locking in oil purchases at a set price over a long period of time. The problem is that no technocrat really knows where oil prices will be in a year's time. Minister of Finance Dr. Nigel Clark instructed technocrats in the Bank of Jamaica to determine whether hedging made sense at this time, within the context of a collapse in oil prices in April. The central bank concluded that the oil hedge was not feasible at this time due to the risk involved in potentially locking the island in at higher oil prices while in a fiscal cash crunch. Additionally, overall, oil prices are lower than a year ago and therefore more manageable. The price of goods and services remained flat in August, with the Statistical Institute of Jamaica reporting a 0.2% inflation rate for the month. Statin said the slight increase was largely as a result of the 1.2% increase in the Housing, Water, Electricity, Gas and Other Fuels division. The Transport and Recreation division also increased by 0.3%, while Sport and Culture went up 1.2%. However, these increases were moderated by lower prices for vegetables for the review period, which led to a 0.5% decline in the index for the heaviest weighted division, food and non-alcoholic beverages. Meanwhile, more Jamaicans believe that business conditions are worse than they were a year ago. This according to the Bank of Jamaica's July 2020 survey, which shows the present business conditions index dropping 12 points when compared to the previous survey. However, the Future Business Conditions Index remained largely unchanged, reflecting a decline in the proportion of respondents who believe that conditions will improve. Barita Investments has upsized its additional public offer to $13.5 billion, up from the $9 billion initially targeted. The offer was upsized to facilitate acceptance of the maximum amount in the offer. Barita received a full subscription a day before the scheduled close of the offer. The upsize will result in the issuance of an additional 87,000 new ordinary shares to successful applicants.
What's Hot was brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart. And when we come back, it's all about the Tropical Battery IPO.
this money.
This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by BULWARK Insurance Agent, insurance made easy, and Massey United Insurance. How good is your insurance? Welcome back to Taking Stock. Tropical Batteries IPO opened today, September 22. Interested? To discuss, we have Managing Director of Tropical Battery Alexander Melville and Manager of Wealth Management and Syndication at NCB Capital Markets, Sancia Thompson McDonald. Hi, Alexander. Hi, Sancia.
Hi, Kalilah.
You guys twinning. I like it. You're
Yes.
in sync, even though it's via Zoom.
Yes, we are. The only thing that Xander seemingly is missing is the NCB Capital Markets logo. I can't look him up.
Xander, you
Absolutely.
rated. You had a peek in Sancia's closet this morning. You guys are on the same wavelengths. That's great. So let's talk about Tropical Battery. And it's interesting that you call yourself Xander, not Alexander. I like that. So you guys are different from the start. Tropical Battery IPO opens on the 22nd. And I want to hear about the company. So before we come to you, Sancia, let's get an idea of what this company is from Alexander. I think you're pretty much a household name. Most people would know what you are, but give me a sense of where the company is coming from. You're a family business, right?
Yes, we are a family business. Recently, we did take in investment from Portland Private Equity, which was about 2 years ago. So we're trying to make this transition from being a family business to, then private equity partners, and then, going public as we are now. So the business is, 70 years old. As you said, everybody knows the company. It has had ups and downs, but we, with a lot of focus and energy, we've had a really great last 5 years. And we are trying to, make sure that it's around for another 70 years and continue, to grow the business as we have in the past 5 years. And I think even to, look at new markets, look at new products, and just continue to expand and improve what we offer.
What's the relationship between you, Mark, and Daniel Jr.?
Okay, Mark is my eldest brother. He's about a year and a half older than me, and he focuses mainly on our tourism business. And then
Which
Daniel
is Chukka, another
yes,
well-known name.
We're keeping busy.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel is probably about 8 years younger, and he focuses, or his strengths are really in marketing and sales, and he is, sell ice to Eskimo kind of thing.
Your brothers, I was wondering if it's a father, son, nephew, but the three of your brothers.
Yes,
running the
all three
company.
brothers.
Awesome. But this company has been around for 70 years. So was it your father's company first?
Actually, my grandfather. Yeah, so we're third generation in family business. And my dad, he was one of four boys as well, and he kind of worked and bought out his other brothers. And in the 70s, I think some of them migrated and all of that. So he became the only owner of Tropical Battery, and then we worked and we actually bought out our dad out of this business as well. We actually still owe him some money.
Wow. But you allowed dad to retire. That's good.
Yeah.
Enjoy a nice retirement.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I definitely want to hear some more about the business, but first let me bring Sancia in. Hi again, Sancia. So NCB Cap is leading this IPO. Tell me how you got involved and why you see this as a good opportunity right now.
Well, the truth is that we would have started this discussion with Tropical Battery for some time now. And Xander, we have been talking for what feels like 2 years.
Yes, around 2 years, yeah.
Yes, so it's nothing that happened over the last few months. It's something that we have been looking into and trying to ensure that all is ready before we brought it to the market. Now, NCB Capital Markets has always been consistent in supporting Jamaican business, and we really admire the Tropical Battery brand. Xander would have shared already the genesis of Tropical Battery from his grandfather to his father, now them as the third generation taking over. So we like to align with brands which have really strong history, similar to Tropical Battery. It's something that we hope to continue. And we suspect with especially what has been happening in the markets, the downturn that has taken place since COVID-19, that this would somehow re-energize of sort what is happening on the junior market.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that you went there with the downturn from COVID-19 because that has just been a part of all of our realities lately. It's affected everyone. It's affected business, and Xander Tropical Battery would be no different. And I'm sure Chukka is not doing very well right now, being in the tourism industry as well. Chukka would have been severely affected. But today we're talking about Tropical Battery. So how have you managed over these past few months? How have you been affected by the pandemic?
I think from first, from a safety perspective, we just tried to make sure that all of our employees were safe and that we, followed all the precautions. Yes, we were affected, but luckily, our business is pretty resilient to pretty much, or I guess from what we've seen, pretty much any downturn. Sales are still above last year. We did have a couple rough months in March and April when they had the full lockdown of St. Catherine. But other than that, our sales are tracking above last year. And so we think we have managed with it well. The first thing, as I said, just dealing with staff concerns and safety. And then once we balance and follow those protocols, we've had, knock on wood, no employees here have caught the disease. So, we think we've been doing a pretty good job on balancing health and keeping the business running and making sure that if customers need batteries, that, we're there and we're open to deliver batteries for them.
Right, as people still traveling, even though there may be a reduction in travel for some time, especially during the height of the lockdown. But you also had to take, and you and your staff had to take a pay cut, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. In those 2 months, we reduced salaries by 10% for top management, and then 5% for middle, and just 2.5% for front line workers. So we figured people at the top could manage more of a reduction than the persons on the front line.
Despite that, though, you mentioned that sales have continued to grow, and even in the middle of this pandemic, you've opened up your new, what is it, a warehouse?
Yeah, new warehouse. It's actually a multi-purpose building. It's a warehouse. It's our head office, and we opened our 6th retail store. We had 5 retail stores before. We just opened another one, which we're really excited about. And the feel and energy out here at this building is actually where I am today, and it is just incredible because the offices are in an upstairs mezzanine floor, actually inside the warehouse, with glass looking all into the warehouse. So everybody just feels like a part of the whole, the whole team feels together. Where we were before, we were in 2 separate buildings, 2 separate warehouses. Staff was, it just wasn't as cohesive, and team members were not able to kind of interact as much as we see now. And it's really been just a real good positive energy for all of us kind of under one roof, and to be able to see and touch and feel our inventory, right there every time you walk out of your office.
Speaking of your team members, they're getting an opportunity to buy shares in the company, to become part owners of the company. Sancia, talk to me about the structure of the offer. So who can buy shares in this, and how can they go about that?
This is the very most exciting part of it. Tropical Battery is offering 325 million shares at a price at $1. So what they have further done is to segment that 325 million units into different pools. So yes, team members of Tropical are able to access up to, Xander, help me with the exact figure.
I think it was 20 or 25 million. And we also did some bonus, or some other shares were gifted to them as well.
Right. So what it is that guaranteed that a minimum of 20,000 units per employee is available for them. That for me says a lot about who the Melvilles are as people, and the fact that they understand that they want their team members, some of whom will have worked many years with the institution, to also feel part of the company. Xander would have shared earlier as well the fact that at the new location there is greater cohesiveness. So I was pretty pleased that he had actually carved out a portion for his team members.
That's pretty awesome. So, Xander, you would have spoken about how sales have grown this year and things have been 2019, 2020 has been a pretty good year for the company despite the pandemic. I had a chance to look through the financials in the prospectus. It starts in 2015, and that's normal. You get 5 years of financials in these types of documents. But 2015 was kind of a turning point for the company, wasn't it? I noticed that you were at a loss at that time. What happened and how did you turn it around?
We were focusing mainly on our tourism business prior to 2015. As you can imagine, the tourism business was growing pretty rapidly in different countries, and most of us were focused and working there. But in 2015, I moved full-time to Tropical Battery. And in 2016, my younger brother, Daniel, also moved here because we realized, things were just not going, as you can tell by the numbers, in the right direction. And so we just pulled the team together and we talked and we spoke to, just everybody explained and said, okay, well, here's the issues. We needed funding. We needed just more focus, and we went out and just chatted with the management team, chatted with our staff, and tried to figure out ways to grow sales with what limited capital we had. But we then raised funding, and that was very helpful from NCB at first through a loan, and then secondly by bringing in private equity. We spoke to a number of companies who we said, okay, we're going to sell 40% of our parent company and invest 90% of that money into Tropical, into our other businesses. And so with that investment in 2017, that helped the turnaround process, which we had already started from 2015 and then, so having more inventory, just being more focused, and I think just balancing our team members and engaging them and realizing that, we're here, we're back in this business, and we take it, very, very seriously. And I think that just focus allowed us to turn around the business along with the capital.
Well, how did that impact your other business, though? So you and Daniel dedicated your time to Tropical. So what happened to Chukka? Well, I know Chukka is still a household across the Caribbean.
Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, we have great partners there. And our older brother, Mark, was there full-time. He's their CEO now as well. And we have great partners in that business. John Biles, who works in the business and has been, with us in that business for many, many years. We also have Portland Private Equity, who invested recently. We have Panjam, who's been invested with us for maybe 7 years now. And so we have a stronger, at that point, we were able to build, Chukka had such a great management team. It was easier for us then to leave and focus on Tropical Battery and know that, there'd be no issues in terms of us not being there or not being there as full-time as we were.
Xander, Tropical Battery, right now you're the market leader. I see the prospectus says you have like 75% market share. So you don't have, well, you do have competition, but you have a really large chunk of the market share. But looking at the future, though, won't batteries become obsolete in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Electric vehicles are coming. Will we still have the need for your business?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, more than ever. All electric vehicles come with 2 batteries. The big one to run the motor, and they use the same conventional battery that we sell now. Actually, one of our suppliers that we buy and bring batteries in here supplies Tesla with batteries. So it is it's the energy storage business is forecasted to grow globally, outpacing most industries. So we think this market has a bright future, in that EVs is only going to help our business.
But those
electric
batteries
vehicles.
last a lot longer than the type that you sell now for regular cars, don't they?
So the one that runs it, or the one that replaces the engine, yes, those last a really long time. But the actual one that turns on the radio and the lights and all those little stuff in the car, that's the same battery that we sell now. You see, EVs, they only have that big battery just to run the motor, to make the car go. But when you're sitting there and want to run the radio or turn on the lights, they use a conventional battery just like the one we sell now.
I noticed that you use the term the energy storage business. So you're not only in the car battery business, but more broadly in the energy storage business. Is that something that you're looking to go into, more different types of energy storage?
Absolutely. We bring in, and the energy storage business that we're in is actually clean energy storage, because batteries don't really give off any major just negative pollution into the air. And so we have gone into lithium ion batteries, which are for renewable energy homes, for like solar installations. I even have solar at my home with the same batteries, and that market we believe is going to grow significantly as well, as the cost of batteries comes down, because the solar, you capture the sun in the day, but then at nighttime you need to use back, and the batteries is perfect for that. And so we think that's another great area, and we've been buying those batteries now for almost a year and selling them, and they've been doing really well for us. It's a good growth area.
That's a huge growth area indeed, because it's a huge challenge in terms of having more people migrate to solar. The storage issue has been one that needed to be solved, but the batteries are getting smaller and smaller and more affordable. So the technology is there to take you through it. So Sancia, coming back to the offer now, tell me some more about the details of it.
All right, so I shared earlier, it's 325 million units available for sale at a price of $1 per share. There are different pools. So the general public pool, the value or the number of shares available in that is 167.5 million units. And then the difference will span across about 5 different pools to include strategic partners, the broker, their company, and industry partners as well.
The industry partner pool is excellent as well, in terms of it's been nice to see the support from many of our customers that we sell to. We have over 1,000 dealers who resell our products. So we have the 6 retail stores, and then like 1,000 dealers, which are spread across the island, small gas stations, auto parts stores, and many of them, we created this special pool that you just mentioned called an industry partners, and we're reserving shares for them to buy, because we know that if it's a win-win, in that if they buy shares in Tropical Battery, then it also encourages them to keep buying Tropical Battery, because they, instead of letting one of our competitors come into their store, they eat every Tropical Battery they sell. Also helps hopefully their their stock price as a shareholder of Tropical Battery now.
Right.
So we think the strategy is it's aligned. Yeah,
right. I get that logic. I do that as well. I like to patronize companies that I'm invested in as a stockholder. So you're seeking to raise $325 million. What are your plans for this money? What are you going to do with it?
So half goes into the business to grow the business, and then the other half goes up to shareholders. The half that goes in the business, we are going to continue the expansion of our retail stores, and also some of them are a little bit older, so we're trying to modernize them and make them a lot more customer friendly. We're going to be going into new product lines. As one mentioned was the energy storage of renewable energy batteries, a little more focus on that and more inventory because we're running short on some of those sizes. So we're going to invest the money in inventory, new product lines, and we are looking at some type of Caribbean expansion. We've done it successfully in our tourism business where we were in 4 countries. We're looking at ways that we could expand this model into different Caribbean islands, whether it's through acquisition or just starting up as well. So that's what the capital will be used for, to really try and, instead of grow this business from almost 2 billion in revenue to maybe 10, hopefully in 5 to 7 years down the road, kind of thing, through expansion. Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best with the IPO and with the business. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much, Sue. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Sancia.
Thank you too, Kalilah.
All right, bye-bye. Up next, it's light bill maths and your market recap, and then the analysts are standing by. This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by BULWARK Insurance Agent, insurance made easy, and Massey United Insurance. How good is your insurance? Hey guys, so I just got my last light bill, and again, it ain't pretty. For yet another month, it's high. One of the first things I like to look at on my light bill is the energy trend section. That's this graph right here. It shows you how much energy you've used over the past 12 months. And as you can see, some months it goes down and some months it goes up. The slot marked current shows you what your energy usage is for that particular billing month. And this is very useful because it can help you to figure out if something is off. Now, if these bars on the graph all look about the same height, and then suddenly you see a major spike one month, that's telling you that your energy consumption has gone up, could be dramatically, and that would explain why your light bill is suddenly very high. There may be something in your house that you need to check. Maybe the rubber on your fridge door is no longer good. I know from experience that can drive your light bill very high. Maybe some high energy appliance like an iron was left plugged in for a long period of time, or maybe somebody is stealing electricity from you. All things that you need to check out. Now, if these bars are fairly consistent, though they're all about the same height, then that means you're using right around the same amount of electricity each month. If that happens and your light bill has still gone up, that's when you need to start examining other parts of your bill that we've discussed previously, like the foreign exchange adjustment, for example. Now, here are some tips that can help you to get your energy usage down. That's what we all want, right? So adjust your day-to-day behavior. Energy conservation can be as simple as turning off your lights or your appliances when you don't need them. When you're not using your appliances like your microwave or your phone charger, plug them out. Get into the habit of checking all your appliances before you leave home or the office. Ensure that everything's plugged out and all the lights are off so that you don't burn energy that you're simply not using. Use natural resources. I know we're all tempted to turn on the AC or turn on the light in the daytime when you're in a dark room, but you could also just open up your windows and let the natural light and fresh air in. Another thing you can do is invest in power-saving equipment. I know that the last thing that you want to hear is spend more money, right? We're all about getting more money. But hear me out. There are energy-efficient tools that can help you out in the long run, such as LED light bulbs. My light bill literally came down by 30% after we changed out all our bulbs. They're a bit pricey, so we did them, a little bit at a time. Every month we bought 1 or 2 LED bulbs until the whole house was done, but I can tell you it was definitely worth it in the end. Fridge timers are also a great investment. It acts like a clock by switching between activating the cooling cycle and the defrost heater to maintain the set thermostat temperature. And this keeps your fridge from being too warm or too cold. And that's something that burns extra electricity. You can find these items in most hardware stores, and even some supermarkets carry them as well. Don't peek in the oven. Every time you peek, you open that oven door, the temperature can drop 25 degrees Fahrenheit, making your oven use more energy to bring the temperature back up. And if you have an electric stove, there goes your light bill. And gotta admit, I'm guilty of this one, leaving the water heater on. When you're ready to take a shower, turn on your water heater for 10 to 15 minutes, then be sure to turn it off. Water heating is a major contributor to your total energy consumption. So I hope these tips have proved helpful to your household and your office spaces. Stay tuned. Taking Stock resumes now.
Time now for your market recap, brought to you by Sagicor Investments. Think wealth, think Sagicor Investments. The Jamaica Stock Exchange advanced with the combined index gaining less than 1%. 97 stocks traded across both the main and junior markets of the JSE for the week ending Friday, September 18, 2020. 36 advanced, 51 declined, and 10 stayed the same. 64 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, totaling $453 million. Lumber Depot traded the most, taking up 28% of market volume. The stock gained 4 cents to open the week at $1.09. Trans-Jamaican Highway traded at the second highest, with people buying and selling 8.6 million shares in the company. Trans-Jamaican lost 3 cents to open the week at $1.22. And Wigton Wind Farm ordinary shares rounded out the most traded, taking up nearly 11% of market volume. The stock lost 2 cents to open the week at 77 cents. Now let's see who had the biggest gains. Siboney Group jumped nearly 31% to close last week at 17 cents. Palace Amusement Company rose 17% to close last week at $1,523.85. And Dolphin Cove shares rounded out the biggest gains to close the week at $7. On the losing side now, ISP Finance Services fell 20% to close last week at $12. Kingston Properties fell 16% to end last week at $6.30 a share. Portland JSX lost nearly 16%, down to $7.17. Market recap was brought to you by Sagicor Investments. Think wealth, think Sagicor Investments.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by Ideal Portfolio Services. Welcome back to Taking Stock. I've got a team of analysts to examine the week in business. I'm joined by Senior Wealth Advisor at Ideal Portfolio Services, Orick Angus. We also have co-founder of Caribbean Value Investor and host of Beyond the Stock Price on YouTube, Devrhoid Davis. He's back, been a minute. And Senior Business Reporter at The Gleaner, Stephen Jackson. Hi, Orick. Hi, Devrhoid. Stephen, it's great to have you guys. It's been a minute since I've had any of you on, so I'm liking it.
Thank you.
Hi, Kalilah. Thank you.
Devrhoid, you look like a young schoolboy.
Wow. Gee, thanks.
You trimmed just for me?
Yes, I did.
Nice. All right, so the big ticket item this week is Tropical Battery, and I want to hear your perspectives on it. Orick, you've read the prospectus. What do you think of Tropical?
Yeah, I actually think it's fairly decent. I see a lot of organic growth coming out of the company. Revenue for the third quarter was approximately 48%. The top line, it's top heavy. I am not so much concerned about the revenue because I think that is sustainable over time. The profit margins, however, on the bottom line are a bit tiny, and it does, however, comes with the nature of the real estate, of the retail industry, and then the exchange rate is also a factor that is a reason why the company cost is so extremely high as well. And last year, the cost of sales was extremely high, and I presume that at the end of this year, I believe the company's financial year end at the end of this month, September 30th, even though the exchange rate is trending down now, I still do believe it will have some level of impact on the company's bottom line as well. Mm-hmm. Yes, organic growth is there. The company is a major market player in the industry with around 76% of the market share, and they seem to have a very resilient supply chain. So like I said before, I'm not concerned about the revenue sustainability, and as you can see, it has grown up aggressively over the last 5 years. But the profit margins will be a bit tinier than usual with the exchange rate. Also, I would love to see more projections in the prospectus, though, in terms of what the next maybe 3 to 5 years will look like. I know COVID is looming and there are a lot of uncertainties around, but at least to give guidance, us analysts can also go and do that ourselves based on past performance. But I'd love to see those information in the prospectus that would kind of guide investors to make, more quicker and better decisions.
Yeah, that would have been nice to see those projections for real, to see where they plan to go and how they plan to get there. So Devrhoid, you've been going through it as well. I see you were first out the blocks with your prospectus review. Good job on doing that so quickly. So give me your takeaways, your key takeaways on the Tropical IPO.
Okay, so I agree with Orick for the most part. The prospectus is actually very light, actually. And what they do cover is the majority of the things that you would ideally want to know. We do expect the company could see some improvement to the bottom line. Orick had mentioned a concern there. My perspective, however, is that improvement in the bottom line in income or even in the earnings per share could result primarily from them having that 5-year tax break. So that could lead to some improvement in the bottom line. Furthermore, we did notice that their year, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, revenues coming in the 9 months was very, very close to what the 12 months were for 2019. So should that continue, and provided they can achieve some level of operational efficiency from those software and those from those programs that they say they're going to implement, we can expect that we should see some improvement in the bottom line.
But as Orick had mentioned, their profitability, their profit margin is very slim. So does that have an impact for persons who might be buying into this expecting significant dividends?
Dividends per se, I wouldn't be looking at Tropical Batteries as a dividend play right now. The dividend policy does state that they would be willing to distribute up to 50% of their net profits, but I would not necessarily be looking at this company as a dividend play. The company does have some potential for improvement in terms of that net profit. We've seen other companies implement efficiency improvement measures such as Lasco Manufacturing and Wisinco, even Caribbean Cement. And what we tend to observe is that when they do implement these measures, we do tend to see an improvement in that gross or even in that net profit margin. So I'm expecting that, but not to the level where we're seeing Tropical Batteries being a dividend player such as Indies or a Mailpack.
Right. So Stephen, let me hear your analysis of Tropical Battery. What are the takeaways for you?
No, I think I agree with everyone. I think the concern is the forecast. Where will it be in a year's time or two in terms of the bottom line? And we already are seeing that the interim results within the prospectus indicate that there's been a slight decline in profitability. I don't remember if it's for the third quarter or the second quarter, but there's been a slight decline. That's to be expected because of COVID. But, one would have hoped, and I don't want to sound greedy, but one would have hoped that for the interim results that profit would have been significantly up over the prior year in anticipation of listings. These are some of the negatives, small negatives of this IPO. That profit the 9 months, or is it 6 months, is slightly flat or slightly down year on year. And it's important because, if you're looking at the stock from just a simplistic price to earnings perspective, you get into a little bit of an issue, because already it's listing at a fair valuation, one could argue, from a trade.
$1.
Huh?
$1.
$1, but it has an intrinsic value of about 90 cents, depending on how you actually do the math.
Right, and the PE ratio being around 20 is not that bad either.
Well, I'm not sure where you're getting 20 from, because we know
it's around 12 point something.
13.5.
Right, around that ballpark.
Right. So,
but I guess,
but the point I'm making ultimately is that you still buy the stock, because you expect future growth to actually allow it to grow into its valuation, right? But if it's not growing, or if there's going to be some headwinds, then for the short-term investor, it might not give you that bump that you're looking for. So I'm thinking that it's going to list, and you're going to get, it might go to $1.30. It might settle at $1.30 in this market, but had it been pre-COVID, it would have gone to $2. It's a nice stock. People were anticipating this listing for quite a while.
Yeah, people. It is a highly anticipated one. I think this one will be an open and close easily, based on the amount that's available for the public and the demand. So let me ask Orick and Devrhoid. I won't ask you, Stephen. And the disclaimer for Devrhoid: Devrhoid is not a licensed financial advisor, but Orick, you can give advice. So tell me, is this a buy for you?
It's a buy for the suited investor. As Steve would have mentioned, in terms of the valuation, it comes down to how investors perceive that, and what are their investment objectives, and if it is aligned to suit those objectives based on their timeline. Yes, we're factoring COVID and all of that, but we have to put those what you call those general investment principles into perspective, because based on the valuation of the stock, as Stephen suggested, I don't expect any significant short-term upspike for investors who would be seeking those gains within that short time frame, So it comes down to perspectives, recommendation, and suitability.
All right, Devrhoid, what does Caribbean Value Investors say?
So our perspective is slightly different. I actually do think that investors could expect to see of upside, a positive upside, if they choose to participate in this stock. Number one is the very low volumes that are going to be available for investors, and the typical response of the market to issues such as this. If we're seeing, historically, when we've seen companies come to market seeking less than the $500 million, that is the limit for the junior market, we've tended to see the stock price appreciate significantly post-listing. Good examples might be Mailback or even the Lab. One I wouldn't want to include Lumber Depot, and there's a specific reason for that. Is because a significant number of shares came onto the market immediately after Lumber Depot's listing. So I wouldn't include them. But if you look at companies like the Lab, if you look at Mailback, for example, these companies that tend to be listing at around the $1 mark, with some level of growth potential, as well as limited number of shares coming to market. We've seen the market tend to push those stock prices significantly higher. And by significant, I'm talking upwards of 50% of the listing price. So that is my expectation for this stock. I would agree that the stock could quite likely close at 9:01 a.m. on the opening date. So that's another perspective. As well as I want to take some time just to appreciate Tropical Battery's current cash position. The company currently has around $90-something million in cash, if I'm not mistaken. That's a significant number for them to have, especially given the current pandemic. If you add to that the other, say, $167 million that the company will be collecting in on behalf of the company for from this IPO, then you're looking at a company with $250 million minimum in basically dry powder, which they can choose to deploy against their growth ambitions. So for me, a definite buy.
Let me come now to a debate that I've been eagerly awaiting. Last week on Taking Stock, we started an analysis of, is this the bottom? We were looking at that question with the analysts who were on last week. And since then, Devrhoid, I saw you tweet, you're calling it no, this is the bottom. But Stephen, you disagree with that. So let me start first with Stephen. I want to hear why you disagree. You don't think this is the bottom, that the market has further to fall.
Yeah, well, there are three reasons, but just to basically explain why I would imagine people would think that's the bottom. A lot of people in Jamaica look at the market from a fundamental perspective. That is, you look at the profit and loss of companies. And if you look at what happened in the March and June quarter, a lot of the major companies took impairments on their books. So of course, going forward, you would expect profitability to improve, right? Because they took the largest hit already, right? So if you are looking at the market that way, you're going to miss what is actually happening. So there are three reasons why we haven't reached the bottom, right? And it's technical. As in, if you look at the technical analysis of the market and just do a simple plotting of the index over the last 25 years, you see the most perfect head and shoulder formation. Just like how you have my shoulder, you have my head, you have my shoulder, we're right here now. And what tends to happen is that because the technical indicators basically give an indication of where the momentum is headed, the momentum is heading from the head to the shoulder and then below. That's the first thing, right? The second thing is that historically, when we are in a bearish market, it takes 15 to 18 months for us to go from the head to the bottom. 15 months minimum, right? We are in month number 12. So over the last 25 years, of the four major bearish incidents, it took at least 15 to 18 months. This period, we're at month number 12. If you track it from the peak of the market from in August 2019. However, if you track it from when COVID hit in March, then we're 9 months in. So at best, we're 12 months in, and at worst, we're 9 months in. The third reason is economic, right? The GSC tracks growth rates, right? It's almost like a one-to-one. And certainly over the last 4 years. And when GDP peaked, quarterly GDP peaked at 2% in December 2018, the market was also peaking. And then from that period, it's been nothing but an attenuating growth rate. And of course, it plummeted now. So now it went from being in 0% or 0.6%, and now it's negative 2.3%. And the point is, if it tracks GDP movement, and we're not yet at the worst contraction, then clearly it's a signal that we're not at the bottom yet. So for those three reasons, right? Those three reasons, we're not at the bottom yet. So we're just not. We're just not. That's it.
There's some compelling arguments. Devrhoid, what do you make of it? What Stephen just presented?
So for me, the primary reason for me estimating that this is the bottom is that I'm not anticipating a 9% drop in those major companies. And right now, where the support line is for those stocks, where we're not seeing where that they're indicative of the stock market falling significantly lower. So based on that, I'm heading more where we're seeing, say, a situation where we're living with COVID-19 and we're getting to some level of normalcy. Persons are getting back to work, or at least learning how to work with COVID-19. And barring a hurricane or a natural disaster, I'm not seeing an incentive for them to sell shares significantly lower than where they are now.
Well, Orick, you're the tiebreaker. We have differing opinions. You've heard both sides, and I'm sure you've been contemplating the same thing too. What do you think?
Yeah, I have, and it's a technical versus fundamental analysis, and similar to Devrhoid, I am a fundamentalist. Steve did, however, bring up some very good indicators or data, and I would agree with him that there has been some level of resistance around the market, especially the main index. And in my opinion, I would agree with Devrhoid that it has bottomed out right now from a fundamental standpoint. So I'm the judge, so I'll choose the fundamental.
And Devrhoid has been having some connection difficulties, so we're not seeing him right now. But that's where we're going to leave it this week anyway. Thanks for joining me, guys. I really appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by Ideal Portfolio Services. That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share with a friend. Also subscribe to our newsletter at takingstock-ja.com and turn on those post notifications so that you can be the first to see all my other features. We want to help people learn more about money so we can all get this money together. This week on Money Mondays JA, I break down the Tropical Battery Prospectus. And on Money Moves JA, Exim Bank's Managing Director Lisa Bell tells us about a new grant for tourism businesses affected by COVID-19. And guys, what's in it for me is also back this week. The Ministry of Finance has a COVID recovery plan. I'll find out what's in it for me. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Kalilah Ray, and follow at Taking Stock JA on Instagram. If you want to connect with the analysts this week, check the description box below for their contact information. And my new website is coming out very soon. Mark your calendars. September 30 is the launch date, so I'm very excited to unveil that to the world. Now tell a friend about Taking Stock. Investing is the new sexy, so let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm Kalilah Reynolds. Stay safe.